Hi, I'm Sabrina Troback with Troback Holistic Counseling, and I'm working with the city to present videos on anxiety during this COVID-19 time. In today's video, we're going to talk a bit about anxiety and what it looks like as it increases and as that anxiety becomes more intense or more significant. So as we talked about last week, anxiety happens in a few different ways. It happens physically in our body where we feel things. It happens in our thoughts, in how we think about things. And it also happens behaviorally in the way that we act or react to different things. Last week, I went through a list of different varieties of symptoms of anxiety, behavioral, mental, and physical. If you'd like to look more into that, you can go to my website and go to my blog section. It is titled Symptoms of Anxiety, and it gives you a very thorough list of a variety of different symptoms of anxiety and how the anxiety can look different depending on the intensity of the anxiety. As anxiety increases and becomes more and more significant, generally the symptoms of anxiety, or what it looks and feels like, also changes. We often know what our anxiety looks like when it's really high, say an 8, 9, or a 10 out of 10, but we don't necessarily know what our anxiety looks like when it's a 3 or a 4 or a 5 or a 6 out of 10. The problem with this is then we don't do anything about our anxiety until it's really high. So part of what we want to do is become aware of what our anxiety looks like as it slowly is increasing, so we can put strategies in place at a lower level rather than waiting until our anxiety is really high. The problem with waiting until the anxiety is really high, say a 9 or a 10 out of 10, is it takes a lot more effort to bring that anxiety back down. The other problem is by the time it's a 9 or a 10 out of 10, we already have a lot of cortisol in our brain. And if you remember from previous videos, cortisol affects our ability to use logic and reason and to think properly. So the chances we'll even remember to use a strategy when it's really high becomes significantly decreased. So what we've got here is an example of a person whose anxiety is changing as they're becoming more and more anxious. So for this person, generally, as a rule of thumb, when their anxiety is really low, daily life, it involves things like fidgeting, chewing their nails. They have a lot of worry thoughts. They can't sit still, and they find they're often cleaning and tidying things. When their anxiety becomes a bit more intense or a bit more significant, they find they have a lack of patience. They're needing to make lists to organize things more. Their jaw is clenched. They find they're sighing a lot, and their thoughts are going a lot faster. They're starting to race. If their anxiety becomes even higher, now they're doing things where they're easily overwhelmed. They have a lot of negative thoughts. They're spending a lot more time on social media, and their shoulders are also becoming tight and maybe even painful. If this person's anxiety becomes really high and it's an 8, 9, or a 10 out of 10, they're doing things like having a panic attack, anger, they're quick to tears, there's a lot of yelling, and their thoughts feel like they're completely out of control. So looking at this person's symptoms of anxiety, we can see that as the anxiety is increasing, the symptoms, or what it looks like, is also changing. This now gives us opportunity to go back and put strategies in place where we weren't able to put strategies in place before because we didn't know what our anxiety looks like. So we're going to also look at a bit of a coping strategy today. We're going to look at the basics. These are things like drinking water, getting proper sleep, having a healthy, nutritious diet, exercising regularly, and also taking care of yourself. Remember, anxiety is connected to that sense of danger, not knowing if we can survive something. If we're not healthy and getting proper sleep, eating healthy, drinking water, our body is already deprived of something, so is therefore going to be more likely to be concerned about our survival. So doing these basic things can be really beneficial. The other thing that's really important in coping strategies is mixing things up. You shouldn't just rely on one coping strategy. You need to have a variety of different coping strategies that you can use depending on the situation you're in, the emotion that you're feeling, or the intensity of the emotion that you're feeling. So if we go back and look at the first person and the symptoms of their anxiety, what they can now do is go back and look at strategies that they can implement as their anxiety is changing and becoming more intense. So to start off, regular, when daily living, this person is going to be making sure they're drinking water and getting a good sleep. They're making a daily plan, so they've got a bit of structure and routine. It becomes more predictable. They're also going to breathe regularly throughout the day, just taking a few deep breaths every once in a while to help kind of bring them back down and settle. Now, if their anxiety becomes a bit more significant, they're going to go for a walk. They're going to be aware of their thoughts and work on trying to slow their thoughts down. So not even worried about stopping the thoughts, they're just trying to slow them down so they're not going as fast. They're also going to work on relaxing their shoulders. If their anxiety becomes more significant, they're going to take that anxious thought and create a plan for it. Figure out how to problem solve. What can they do to manage that anxious thought? They're going to have a hot bath and maybe do a more significant breathing where they're really taking some deep breaths for a couple minutes to try to bring things down and settle them. If that still doesn't work and they're now at a 9 or a 10 out of 10 for anxiety, what they're going to do is take time for themselves. They're going to take a break. They need to remove themselves from other people and just take a bit of a break for themselves. During that time, they're going to take some time and allow themselves to feel their emotions, and they may also do some writing about what they're thinking and what they're feeling. So we can see here how this person uses a variety of different strategies in each stage and how those also change as the stages progress and become more and more and more significant. The more we figure out how we can manage our anxiety based on knowing what our anxiety looks like, the better we're going to be able to manage our anxiety. Again, if you want to look at the symptoms of anxiety, you can go to my blog. It's at my website, trobacholistic.org, in the blog section under symptoms of anxiety. Take care, stay safe, and I will see you next week.